Hey there guys, I just thought I'd make a video on how to graph a linear equation. Now a linear equation is just like it sounds, it's a line, linear. So if you're going to make a linear equation, I gave an example of y equals 1 half x plus 2. Now that's a plus in the middle, just making sure you guys can see that. I have bad handwriting, so sorry about that. Anyways, so for my case, it resembles the form of y equals mx plus b. There's another format of point slope form, which we'll get to later in a part 2 video. But this is just the first one anyways. So if you're given a y equals mx plus b format, then all you have to do is kind of follow the simple steps. Now you're going to always start with the b coordinate. Now you see how it says plus b on right here? Then that is where you start on the y-axis. So right here I have plus 2. Now that just means you go to your y-axis, which in our case is the one that goes from the bottom to the top. I'll point from here all the way up is the y-axis. And then on the second dash, which I labeled as number 2, right, is going to be 2. Now that's where you start. Now after you do that, it gets a little bit trickier because it takes a little bit of practice getting used to the slope. It's called involvement of the equation. Now our slope is 1 half. Now for our slope, all you have to do is remember that slope is just your change in your y over your change in x. The triangle just means delta or change. Sorry, delta or change. Anyways, so for our case, we had m equals delta y over delta x, which equals 1 half. Now, since they're both positive, that means that it's going to be up 1 and to the right by 2. Now, say you have a negative, right? This is just a what if case. The bottom will never be negative. It's always to the right. The top is what changes up or down. So you never have to worry about adjusting the bottom. You might have double change it in case you do. So that might mess you up. So never change the bottom. Only change the top. Okay? Anyways. Now, unless it's specified, of course. So, now for our case, since it says up 1 and to the right by 2, we're going to go back here. And since we started at the point 2, 0, or just on the 2 point on your y-axis, you have to go 2 to the right, like it was saying below, right 2. So I just did 2 jumps, 1, and then 2. And then it says up 1. From that point that we just landed on, from the 2 jumps, and up 1. So now we're at 2, 1, 2, 3. So 2, 3 is our next coordinate. I didn't write that down, but I'll show you another step where it shows it. Anyways, so that's kind of what it is for just these jumps. And it is a good kind of practice to get used to it. Maybe try a few in your book or from homework. So that's that. Now, there's another way to do this. And if you're getting an equation, you don't remember the formula. So this is a function. If you ever forget how to do this, then just remember, check for restrictions, and if there are things you can't, what's called apply to the function or plug in for x, plug in other numbers. So for my case, I said, since it's a linear equation, it's going to go forever in both directions. And some real world equations or real world situations will say, well, it can't be this. So you just skip a point. But for our case, I'm just going to say there's no restrictions. This is a perfect world scenario. So everything works out. You can use every x value known to man. So that means decimals, percents, everything from negative infinity to positive infinity. So that's what's going to happen. So for my case, I just chose 3 points. That's usually how you do it. About 3 to 5, maybe 2 if you're just kind of have a ruler or something. But usually the more points, the better it looks, especially if curves. Anyways, so I chose x equals 0, x equals 1, and x equals 2. Now for this, all you're going to do is replace the x value each time with the new x value that you chose. So for my case, I chose the 0. Now for x equals 0, I had y equals 1 half times 0 plus 2. Anything times 0 is just 0. I drag down the 2, and then 0 plus 2 is 2. Therefore, the coordinate is your original x value and the new y value. So it's going to be 0, comma 2. And then, if we look down for the 1, we had y equals 1 half times 1 plus 2. That was our second x value, shown right here. And then, back down here, 1 times anything is the other number. So 1 times 1 half is just 1 half. then plus 2, drag it down. So 2 plus 1/2, convert the 2 to a fraction. And that's just going to be 2 times, 2 converted to a fraction is just 4/2. And then 4/2 plus 1/2 is 5/2. Now 5/2 is just 2.5. Now make that into a coordinate. Your original x value was a 1, and your new y value is 2.5. So it's 1 and then 2.5. Now for the next value, I did a 2. So it's going to be 1/2 times 2 plus 2. 1/2 times 2, the denominator and the numerator will be the same. So 2 over 2, so that's just 1. And then you drag down 2 again. So 1 plus 2 equals 3. And you remember how I was saying it was 2, 3? Well, there it is. So we had to go 2 to the right and then 1 up from where we started. So as you can see, we started at 0, 2 by plugging in 0. And then we had to do 2 more conversions, or 2 more inputs, I guess you can call it, in order to get 1 more jump upwards.